didn't. We had Dean Ambrose, of course, another great match, Stardust, another great match. Kevin Owens, of course, made his debut at the expense of John Cena being defeated at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view earlier this year because of the debut of Kevin Owens because of the U.S. Championship Open, which, of course, Kevin Owens wasn't successful in garnering his first singles championship. Of course, the IC title was, courtesy of Ryback, and that program, the way it went, benefiting Kevin Owens. But the thing is, I really thought that Kevin Owens would have won the U.S. title. But the big thing out of that was that Kevin Owens actually benefited because he made his name known in WWE because of John Cena, and John Cena could do that same thing for Roman Reigns. John Cena may have endorsed Reigns over the last couple of months, but a match between Reigns and John Cena plus Sting and The Undertaker at WrestleMania could save WrestleMania this year, which at this point in time looks really uncertain and really bleak. There are a number of ways you can bring John Cena back, either by having him win the Royal Rumble or some match at Fastlane to punch his ticket to the main event of WrestleMania against the likes of Reigns and Sheamus. But I just think that John Cena being in the main event of WrestleMania is second to probably The Undertaker and Sting, or The Undertaker and Kane, which is another match that I'm really high on for this year's WrestleMania for The Undertaker's final match. And of course, with the stipulation being that if The Undertaker loses the match, it probably would be his final match for The Undertaker to go out on top like he deserves of going out on top for being this dedicated performer for so many years. I really think that John Cena is your secondary main event and the answer to everything that's going on in WWE right now, with how Stephanie and Triple H obviously had to be feeling the pressure this close to WrestleMania 32, which obviously is just a few months away. And of course, there are a few select seats open up still for WrestleMania, so they're expecting thousands of people at WrestleMania. So you got to imagine the pressure that's building all the time for Triple H and Stephanie to come through with this year's WrestleMania. And of course, there's also the rumor that they could be putting themselves in a tag team match against The Rock and UFC fighter Ronda Rousey, UFC Women's Champion. So I think there's a lot that can go and really put towards saving WrestleMania 32 this year, which is really crying up for something desperately to happen and unfold over the next couple of months. Because as I said, I can't ever remember a time when there were so many wrestlers on the DL and so many big names at the same time. We've got Randy Orton, Sting, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, who really surprised me after blowing at his knee on tour overseas after that freak power bomb where Seth Rollins was carrying an individual across the ring. His knee blew out, similar to how Sting injured his neck. Of course, Seth Rollins, of course, dropping Sting with the power bomb, and unfortunately Sting fell the wrong way, but professionally wanted to finish the match, which I give Sting a tremendous amount of credit for doing. I think they really need to consider taking that power bomb out of Seth Rollins' move arsenal because it's really screwing up more times than what WWE are offering to admit to us that it is, and it's a really dangerous move. And because of that move, so many injuries, including the individual who performs the move, have unfortunately been injured because of that move. So I think they really need to take that out of Seth Rollins' move arsenal because of how many injuries we've seen occur because of this and how many injuries we've seen outside of it also occur on the DL. But the main issue here with this week's video blog is to raise awareness of how critical of a time WWE are faced with, because I can't ever remember a more critical time than this here in 2015, just a few months away from WrestleMania 32. A WrestleMania, by the way, which is predicted to be the biggest WrestleMania of all time, considering the venue of Dallas, Texas, and the circumstances, of course, fitting perfectly with Sting versus Undertaker, which is one of your answers to the main event of WrestleMania 32 with all these wrestlers on the DL, and of course the secondary championship match. But you've really got to come through with WrestleMania this year, considering the venue and thousands of fans to be expected to be seated for WrestleMania this year, with a few select tickets already opened up for WrestleMania a couple of weeks back, and of course WrestleMania tickets going on sale ever since September, about 2.5 months ago, and they are flying away. WrestleMania tickets are, so they're expecting thousands, and they're expecting an indoor attendance record for WrestleMania this year. So I think that with them expecting to break the record from WrestleManias prior to this year's, and with a big record set to be expected for WrestleMania and the venue, I think you really need to come through with everything that you're advertising for WrestleMania this year. The promotional package is really there for WrestleMania, so you really can't afford to fool anything up. But I mean, the DL right now is making WrestleMania look really uncertain at this point in time, and who can blame wrestling fans for feeling the way that they do, especially the radio shows and columnists who write about this sort of stuff all the time on wrestling news websites like PW Torch, PW Insider, Pro Wrestling, and ProWrestling.net and .com, who can really feel for all you guys for saying what you have about wrestling, because as you've said, I can't ever remember a time when there have been so many wrestlers on the DL and that we've been faced with these sort of circumstances, and they've really got to be feeling the pressure in terms of WWE creative writers. I mean, obviously the writers can't get it done at this point in time, although the divisions are desperately trying to offer something worth talking about. Obviously, the writers are letting us know that they can't get it done and they can't put out. And obviously, Stephanie and Triple H have got to be feeling the pressures as the COOs and the principal owners try to desperately squander something up for WrestleMania 32 this year. The International Alliance is something different. We have never seen the International Alliance before between Sheamus, Rusev, and King Barrett, but obviously the ones benefiting from the International Alliance is obviously Rusev and Sheamus, of course, because Sheamus is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, and Rusev has been waiting for an opportunity ever since TMZ broke that story of his real-life engagement with Lana. So obviously the ones benefiting are Sheamus because he's champion, and that's the only reason he's benefiting, because of his Money in the Bank briefcase and what that did for him in the wake of Survivor Series. And of course you got Rusev finally being pushed, which is something I give WWE Creative a tremendous amount of credit for having done. King Barrett, I'm not so sure on, although this is a push for King Barrett. I mean, we've seen Barrett push before in the past. He's been Intercontinental Champion. He's been the number one contender of the championship before. He was the leader of Nexus, so it's kind of like history's repeating itself when you're talking about Barrett, only he's under a different ring alias called King Barrett now. Not really a big fan of that, more so a fan of what they're doing with Sheamus and especially Rusev. But the thing is, the International Alliance, which is what I've chosen to refer to it as, is just a rekindling of what the Authority once was. It doesn't have Kane, it doesn't have Seth Rollins, it doesn't even have J&J Security, and the only remnants we're seeing of the Authority are Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, which is why I thought that Dean Ambrose would have been the true sellout for Triple H to go to, for the remnants of the Authority to rekindle itself with Dean Ambrose as champion. That's why in the last number of months I've been really high on Dean Ambrose being WWE champion and possibly being Triple H's man, his sellout, rather than Sheamus coming out and cashing in the briefcase the way that he did, which is why I was really hoping Sheamus was going to be the guy to fill the void for Seth Rollins because of Seth Rollins' unfortunate injury, which Seth Rollins will be out for over 9 months, which is almost 1 year. Not quite 1 year, but it seems like forever, with 9 months being, of course, allowing for a lot of stuff to happen in professional wrestling. So I think the biggest answers you can come up with right now are either Sting versus Undertaker as your main event of WrestleMania 32, and John Cena coming back in the WrestleMania main event against someone like Sheamus, who's obviously guaranteed a spot in the WrestleMania main event with how many wrestlers are on the DL. And is this really what you want to see? We know that Sheamus and John Cena's history has been well documented over the years, but they have never been in a WrestleMania main event before, and then Roman Reigns is your wild card, which could set up for a triple threat match for the 100th time in the last 5 to 6 years at WrestleMania. It seems like every 3 to 4 years we're seeing a WrestleMania triple threat match, which is really ridiculous. Too many triple threats at WrestleMania, and I'm sure a lot of wrestling fans, I speak for a lot of you, feel the same way that I do when I say we've seen so many triple threat matches over the last number of years that it's really irritating and it's becoming too noticeable for me as a fan of professional wrestling, because I prefer WrestleMania main events being one-on-one matches. I've got the WrestleMania Anthology, which documents so many years of WrestleMania, and in the WrestleMania Anthology, I prefer the one-on-one WrestleMania main events rather than triple threat matches, which we have seen for a number of years at WrestleMania, but they're not as entertaining as one-on-one matches, and the challenger usually overcoming the odds and becoming champion, with the title known to change hands more so than any other event every year in WWE history. It's either WrestleMania or Survivor Series new champions have been crowned at, because of course they're the first and second longest running pay-per-views and traditions in WWE history. And over those traditions, I've rather seen one-on-one matches than triple threat matches, and I think we've seen so many triple threat matches over the years. So if you're looking at a one-on-one match or a match for the championship at WrestleMania, you obviously have to put John Cena in there against whoever your champion is, obviously resulting in possibly John Cena winning his 16th title. Now, I have said that I've never really been a big fan of John Cena tying the record of Ric Flair and going on to win his 16th championship, and I still am not a big fan of the fact of John Cena possibly winning his 16th championship. But with WWE being in dire straits at this point in time, being faced with the circumstances they are faced with, I think that having John Cena be the 16th-time reigning champion is the answer at everything going on right now. And am I wrong or am I right in having said what I've said about John Cena coming back and being a 16-time champion for the main event of WrestleMania 32? Because who else are you going to put in there? Yes, Bo Dallas may be over, but Bo Dallas is not over enough to be put in the WrestleMania main event at this point in time. The New Day may be over, but they're not over enough to be put in the WrestleMania main event. So because you have people who are over with WWE, but not over enough, consequently, the only one that you have left to put in the WrestleMania main event as your primary option will be someone like John Cena, because he's been the spokesperson for WWE for years. He's always been the spokesperson for them outside of Triple H, Stephanie, and Vince, who have been your primary spokespeople for WWE. He's granted more wishes than any celebrity out there. He's the ambassador of WWE, and he's put over so many countless new names over the years, especially with this U.S. Open Challenge, which was a very innovative idea. One of the more innovative ideas we've seen from WWE creative in recent years for the better part of the last decade, allowing them to put over names and create names out of Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler. Let me put it to you this way. If not for that U.S. Championship match between John Cena and Dean Ambrose a couple of months ago, Dean Ambrose probably would have never went on to get a shot at the championship in his feud with Seth Rollins, nor would Kevin Owens have went on to become Intercontinental Champion. It definitely paved the road to success for people like Kevin Owens and Dean Ambrose for the futures of their careers. If John Cena is supposed to be passing the torch, he's obviously doing a great job in both passing the torch and choosing who to pass the torch to, which is something I give John Cena a tremendous amount